have sound at all. Wild. Um, I'm so good at tech and also time management. Hi, Joshua. Thank you so much for volunteering to present time management for entrepreneurs in our Thrive in Business virtual learning series. I can hear. Okay. Anyway, I'm Janine Winters. I'm HQ for ORPIB for another 16 hours or so. I'm just gonna hand it over to you, and I'll be watching the chat in case anybody has questions. I'll flag them for you. But take it away, and thank you.
All right, thank you so much, and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Joshua, and I run the company Vibrelocity LLC, which is started as just my artist moniker for DJ services and music production, but I've since used it as kind of my umbrella for all my business services. So that includes helping small business owners with professional skills, sales skills, marketing, branding, and other kind of creative projects that they might have. But today we're going to be talking about time management, and this workshop is specifically for entrepreneurs. So everything is kind of geared for the small business or mid-sized business owner. If you're a large business, you'll probably find some things that apply as well. All right. So I want to start with our agenda. We're going to just define time management, what that actually means in the context of being a business owner. Then we're going to do a couple of different exercises to kind of get the juices flowing and familiarize ourselves with time management as a concept. I'm sure we have a variety of different experiences with time management, and so I'm going to try to touch on all the bases and give you tools at the beginner level and also at the advanced level. We're going to go through the basics of using a calendar and some of the pro tips around using a calendar. Then we'll talk about work-life balance and how to kind of integrate that into your life. We'll talk about a concept I've coined single-pointed focus, and then we'll review, go through some final tips, and then I have some resources as well. So when we wrap up, Janine, I want to figure out a way where I can email the slides to everyone because there's links.
Okay.
Um, yeah.
Happy to do it.
All right. So first of all, according to Wikipedia, I wanted to define time management. It is the process of planning and exercising conscious control of time spent on specific activities, especially to increase effectiveness, efficiency, and productivity. And that's really the goal today is how do we implement practices and tools into our lives in order to be more effective, efficient, and productive. And so today, present these practical tools and exercises designed for people like you. Find ways to improve work-life balance, learn how to prioritize business versus personal needs, and learn the basics of using a planning calendar. Before we jump in, though, I did want to kind of get everyone involved and hear from you all. So if you could put in the chat, it can be one sentence or even a few words. Um, what are some of your current best practices? Because it helps me get a gauge for where everyone's at, and I want to speak to where you are. And there's no wrong answers here. It just helps me understand where everyone's at. Nice. So I'll read them off in case people aren't reading the chat. We have reminders, scheduled tasks, all the to-do lists, multiple calendars, scheduled emails. That's cool. Might have to ask you about that, Brandon. Uh, integrations, maybe integrations. Time blocking. Cool. Alex will actually be talking about time blocking today. Awesome. Nice. All right. Cool. Everyone has a little bit of something that we're going to talk about today. Meredith, your approach to putting things on the calendar and deleting them, I have something similar that I'll talk about as well. Okay, cool. Thank you so much for sharing. So, all right, the very first thing we're going to do is an exercise called the 168-hour week. So I would like you all to, hopefully you have something to write with already, but if not, please get something to write with. I do think this exercise is better done tactile, so pen and paper or pencil, if possible. If not, just do it on your Google Doc or something. Um, give you a second to get that, and we'll just talk about the 168-hour week. So every person has 168 hours in a week. That's just 7 times 24. And we're responsible for how we use these hours. That time includes every single thing we do. So brushing your teeth, scrolling on Facebook, going to the bathroom, showering, going to work, playing with your dog, like everything we do in the day is included in that time. Time efficiency means that we have more hours in our day for self-care, for family, friends, and the things that we love. So when we make time for ourselves, we're actually more effective at work. And it's an argument I'm gonna make throughout this presentation is when we take care of ourselves, we actually are more productive. So the exercise is pretty simple. Does involve some math though, so if you need to get your calculator, grab that too. So the very first thing you're going to do is consider what is your ideal night's sleep? Like how many hours a night would be your ideal sleep? So for some people, that's going to be typically the range is about 6 to 10. I don't see many people putting less than 6 hours a night. And if you sleep more than 10 hours, no shame. But typically that's, especially for entrepreneurs, that's kind of the range. But put what works for you. It can be 7.5. It doesn't have to, it doesn't have to be a round number, and then take whatever that number is for your night and multiply it by 7. And then you're going to do line items here, but put that total over to the side. The next number is related to hygiene. So most people have not really thought a lot about how much time they spend on hygiene. Whenever I do this one-on-one, it's always funny to like have this conversation, but I want you to think for a second, how long do you spend on hygiene? So this includes getting up in the morning, shower, if you shower in the morning, showering, getting dressed, doing your hair, brushing your teeth. Um, at night, it's, you know, PJ time, again, brushing your teeth, washing your face, whatever it is you do at night. So all of those things related to just hygiene. And if you're like, I have no idea, I've never thought about this, typically it's between 1 and 3 hours for most people per day. So if you're like, I have no idea, maybe put 2 hours. Um, but again, typically it's 1 to 3. So you take that number, multiply it by 7, so you get your weekly total. Put that over to the side. And then another fun one that most people don't think about is food related hours. So this is going to be not only, preparing your food, but grocery shopping, going out to eat, doing the dishes, eating the food. So all of the things related to the food, not just like this is how much time I spend eating, but all the things related to your food and intake. So again, this maybe feels abstract. You're like, I don't know, I've never thought about this. Typically 2 to 4 hours a week, or sorry, no, sorry, 2 to 4 hours a day for most people. If you're preparing every meal for yourself at home and doing dishes right after, um, that's typically up in the 4 hour range. If not, if you're maybe doing meal prep or going out to eat, some days you're going to save time. It's more on the 2 hour side per day. And again, if you don't know, maybe put 3 hours just as an average. And then take that number, multiply it by 7 again, keep the total. And then I want you to include your work hours for the week, including your commute as well. So drive time to and from, between meetings, if you're driving, all around. And if you work, like a lot of entrepreneurs have a main job and then they do their business on the side, or vice versa. They have their business, but then they have a side job as well. So I want you to include both if you have that situation going on. And figure out what that total is. You probably have a better idea of what that total is, but maybe without the commute. So make sure you include the commute. And then figure out that total for the week. And then take those four numbers and total them. And then you're going to take that number and subtract it from 168. So it should be a positive number. And then I would like everyone to take that number that they have left over and put it in the chat so I can see where everyone's at. Yeah, Janine says she's surprised there's so much. And that's the kind of the point of this exercise is to see like what we're doing with our time. Um, Jake has 41, Brandon is 54, Alex 47. Great. Thank you all for doing the exercise. And let's talk about more time brushing your teeth. Um, so here's a sample week, and I wanted to provide like a visual aid for what we're talking about here. So in this sample week, we have someone who works 60 hours, including commute. They sleep 8 hours a night. They spend 3 hours a day on food and 1 hour a day on hygiene. And so they're left with 24 hours. Um, and that's how this is a visual representation of that. So if you think about it, we spend a third of our lives sleeping. And as long as we're able-bodied, we spend about a third of our lives working. And that leaves a third of our lives for the other stuff, hygiene, food, and our playtime, the time for the things that we love, for the people we love, or just to, you know, do nothing. Be a vegetable, watch movies, scroll social media, whatever it might be. But that's this block of time here. So that's the point of this exercise is just kind of like visualize what am I doing with my time right now, and how can I utilize the time I have left over to to the best of my ability to the most fulfillment and enjoyment I can get out of this life. Um, so any questions on this one? And you can come off mute if you'd like, or put in the chat. Okay, so we're going to talk throughout the presentation about like how do we use that 24 hours or that leftover time in ways that make us not only better entrepreneurs, but just happier people. Okay, so here's another exercise that is for prioritizing tasks. This is something when I've worked with entrepreneurs for the past 15 years or so with time management and just like, yeah, organization and everything. And prioritizing tasks is one of the hardest things for entrepreneurs. Figuring out, because everything feels urgent, right? Everything feels like, oh, I have to do it today. I have to do it right now. And not all of us can handle that kind of pressure. And so I've over the years I've developed or found different tools to implement where we can find ways to prioritize our tasks that work for us personally. And all the years doing this is the best approach I've found, and it's called the bucket system. It's actually I found it on a site that has like resources for ADHD or people who have ADHD, and but it works. I think it works for everyone, honestly. Not gonna lie. So again, with your paper, hopefully, I want you to draw 5 circles and pretty big, maybe like 2, 3 inches across. And don't worry about them being neat. That's not the point of this exercise. And each circle is going to have a different label. Now, these labels I have here on the slide are just kind of like the most generic. and I'll explain each one. Before you write down your labels, I want you to just hear the explanation so we can think about this, what works for you. So, urgent is pretty self-explanatory. Like this is something that needs to be done today or in the next hour. So that's that kind of task. Quick tasks are things that can maybe be put off, and also I like to look at quick tasks as things that you can kind of like do in a block of time. Like, oh, I have these 10 different things that each take 2 minutes. So I'm going to just put them all in one block of time and do them all together. Deep focus is any kind of task related to your business where you can't be interrupted. Like if someone interrupts you, you're just gonna like you're gonna either be frustrated or you're gonna have to find the momentum and the motivation to get back into it. And I think it's important, really important to classify tasks that are deep focus as such so that you can give them the kind of the attention and the time that they deserve. Project work is for obviously projects where it's you're gonna not finish it in one sitting. Okay, it's something that you're gonna sit down, work on, leave, come back to over many days, many weeks, even months or years. So that's what project work, but you can still write down tasks related to that larger project. And then development is more for like skills that you want to learn, trainings, workshops like this one, anything that where it's like, okay, I need to do this. It's not necessarily for my business, but it will help me in the long run. So those are kind of like the most broad types of tasks that I've found. Um, but I want the whole purpose of this exercise is actually to find labels that work for you. So other approaches have been based on your energy level. Some people are very they can only do certain tasks when they have certain levels of energy. Like emails are typically a low energy task, right? They don't take a lot of energy, just typing, maybe a few sentences or a paragraph. Um, they don't take a lot of energy. Giving a presentation might be a higher energy task, or meeting with a client. If you do any kind of manual labor for your business, like that's obviously going to be one of the higher energy tasks. So you can break it down that way. You can break it down by almost like mental state. Like I'm feeling focused and organized. I'm feeling confident. I'm feeling maybe more meek or shy. Like you can break it down that way. So there's lots of different ways to break it down. I have some other examples on the next slide, but I just wanted you to start thinking about that. Write down, start to write down some labels and see if those work for you. Um, and then as practice, I wrote 10 here. That 10 is way too many for this exercise, but let's say 2 or 3 tasks related to each label and write them in that bucket and see if you can keep them organized by due date. So I want you to just take a few minutes and work on that. And there's no wrong approach here. And I want to encourage you to just play with this, practice with it, because it's something that you're going to refine over time. Yeah, Brandon, totally. There is overlap between these, and so but that's kind of the dilemma of the entrepreneur always is there's going to be overlap. Um, and so something to think about is how, if you have certain tasks, you might want to put them in multiple buckets so that they get done. That's one approach. Another approach is figuring out a different label that's more appropriate for that kind of task. And so I'm gonna go on to the next slide. Let me know if you need that information. But these are just some additional tips and how to customize this approach. So again, labeling the buckets, whatever makes sense to you. Um, let's see. I put, so yeah, different energy levels I already mentioned, types of tasks. So again, this can be like project, very quick tasks. Um, could be related to time frame, like how long does this take me? Is it a 1 minute task, a 5 minute task, a 2 hour task, what have you? Using some kind of process so that these can be changed easily. So like I recommend a whiteboard. Um, there are other approaches. I also use a Google Doc uh, where I can just actually I'll just show you. Makes it easier. So I have a big to-do list and nothing here. I'm not afraid of showing any of you all this. So I have different to-do. These are my buckets, basically. So I have my personal, so that's anytime I have like a doctor's appointment or something, I'll put that in there, or for the household. Professional is like specifically for like workshops, or I'm working on a book, things like that. I have my business related to music and short-term tasks there. Um, and I'm not fully up to date on this because there's some things I need to update. Um, then I have my more long term. I have specific marketing efforts that I do. I have my big ideas, and then specific things related to any presentations I'm working on. So that's just one way to use the buckets, but you can, I also have a whiteboard that I use, and I have multiple notebooks as well. Okay. Let's see. Additional notes on the bucket system. You can also think about major categories. This is more of like a thought experiment for you as you're figuring out the labels for your buckets. So maybe breaking it into two major categories of structured time and unstructured time. Another way of thinking about that is like managed or intuitive, um, professional versus creative time, client facing versus independent. So all of these are very related, right? But just thinking about splitting the two in case you're that kind of person where it's like, this is my creative time or my, left brain versus right brain kind of thing. Um, Also administrative versus productive. That can be another way to look at tasks. Um, any other examples? Anything that you came up with as you were working on this? Feel free to share in the chat. Oh, Brandon says track progress. Yeah, definitely track progress. So whatever works for you, like if you like to cross things off or if you like to delete things, um, I think everyone's a little bit different in how what kind of motivates them. For me, I just delete things from my to-do list. But crossing it out can be really fulfilling for some folks, and even like a dopamine boost. Janine says emotionally draining as a label, which I think is, yeah, great. That's a great one. Because then like, okay, I gotta prepare myself for this thing, and probably have a recovery period after those tasks too. Okay, well, feel free to put any other labels that you came up with in the chat. Does anyone have any questions on the bucket system? Okay. All right, so some additional tips just for prioritizing tasks. And now we've covered some of this, but just to kind of hammer it home. To-do lists, write down everything that needs to be done. If you're a sticky note person or a notebook person or whiteboard person, whatever works for you, or all three. Um, but have somewhere where you can just write down all the things and then move to the organizing piece after. I think that's really helpful. Um, Organizing tasks by due date. So that's going to help just get you in the mindset of, okay, I have these things. When do they need to be done? Now, if tasks share a due date, that can be challenging. So then you have to kind of weigh it in terms of importance. So is it needed for your organization, for your children, for your mental health, and figure out in that given moment or that day or that week what's more important. Like, because sometimes your mental health is gonna have to take priority over your business. And sometimes, you're gonna have to shove those emotions down and get the work done. It's just part of being an entrepreneur sometimes. Um, but the idea is, you'll determine what is important and use that framework for organizing tasks. And Brandon already mentioned, but update your list. Make sure you track your progress to ensure, especially priority tasks, get accomplished. Okay, so now we're going to shift gears a little bit and talk about using a calendar. With calendar use, we can actually relate this to our buckets. And so I'm going to show you how to do that with Google Calendar. It also works for Outlook. If you use a different calendar, then I can't speak to it necessarily, but hopefully there are tools related to what we're going to talk about. Um, so we're going to talk about block scheduling. So this is kind of the most basic use of a calendar, the easiest way to get started, I think, with a calendar use. So if you're, kind of a casual calendar user or it has seemed daunting in the past, then this is a great way to kind of get your feet wet. But breaking up the day into 2-hour blocks is one way to look at it, where maybe you need to structure every part of your productive day. Some people need that kind of that structure, that they need that foundation. If you're going to do that, make sure you include like eating and sleeping and just put that in. You can do bigger blocks, kind of stack those 2-hour blocks in order to get that time in, but um, making sure that you don't let things encroach on important stuff like sleeping, like eating, like time with your friends. And we'll actually talk about that more as we go on as well. Um, every single task that you schedule, if you're doing the 2-hour block scheduling, give it 2 hours, and then you can group shorter tasks in those 2-hour blocks. Um, something to keep in mind is for the final 10 to 15 minutes of each 2-hour block, take a break. So go for a walk, just unplug in some way. Close your eyes, walk around your house even, but just, you know, remove your brain from the activity so that you can refocus as you come back for the next 2-hour block. And then one thing to put into practice, and I recommend this for everyone, is to actually schedule time each week to review, edit, and finalize your calendar for the following week. That's one of the kind of like the pro tips from many years of doing this is like actually putting time on your calendar to do your calendar. Sounds silly, but it's really effective. So I wanted to practice, just show you an example of my calendar. It's pretty basic right now. But I have, so all within Google Calendar, you're able to create your own different calendars. And to do that, you just go over here to other calendars, hit the plus sign, create new calendar, name it. You just call it new bucket for this case. You can call it whatever you want though, whatever relates to your buckets. And you can add a description if you want. And then you hit back and it should show up right here. You can then, once it's created, you can change the color. You can customize it, add a custom color here. But you can see that I've already added a bunch of different buckets. And these are what work for me. So I'll explain each bucket and then just kind of show you how I use them. So I have personal, which is just kind of like anything related to the home, anything related to, I guess, my self-care. Um, I have basic needs as more of like this has to get done. Like this is non-negotiable. I'm putting it on there and it has to happen. So doctor's appointment, farmer's market shopping, internet call with my internet company, like just things that are really, really important that cannot budge. I have birthdays. I have lessons. So I give music production and DJ lessons. So those are their own bucket. I have music bucket as DJ gigs, but also as like I do mentor set. I receive mentoring, and so my sessions with my mentor. And then anytime I do, I don't have any recent ones, but anytime I do like I'm working on a song or something, I'll schedule time if I want to get it done. Professional is workshops like this. Also, I give like small business lessons, like training to entrepreneurs. So that's what that bucket is for. I have social. So this is important to me. So if there's a non-negotiable social gathering, I'm going to put it on my calendar. That way I know like I'm not getting up the next day anytime soon, or I just need to make sure that I don't let things encroach on that time. And then tasks are just like simple, easy, quick and easy things that I want to make sure I get done, but don't really have necessarily like urgency or they can be moved if need be, typically. Um, so like this, I'm trapping a neighborhood cat, so that's a basic task, so he can get neutered. But it doesn't have to be at 8. I can move that back as many hours as I need to. So that's just a quick explanation of like how I use my buckets and how I use the calendar. Um, Now, if you're not familiar with using calendar to create an event, it's pretty simple. You just click on the day, you type in the new task, whatever it might be. You pick your calendar here from the drop down, so all your calendars will show up there. So you pick what you want, and then it'll default to the color you picked for that calendar, but you can change that color if you want. Um, you can add guests. So if you're, let's say you're having a client meeting, you can add it, turn it into a Google Meet, or you can add a location for a physical meeting. You can add a description here. And the one thing I really like about this calendar and Outlook as well is to add a notification. So if you're like, okay, I need a reminder on my phone when this event is coming up, and you'll also get it on your computer. So if you have your calendar open on your computer, you'll get this as well. But you can add the notification 10 minutes before, 5 minutes before. You can do an hour, a day. You can even do a week as a reminder. Um, and you can add as many notifications as you want. So you could literally, I've never tested it, but I'm sure you could do like 10 notifications if you really wanted to. And that's it. And then you save it. Another thing I love about this is you can drag, oh wait, I needed to put it on this day. You can just drag it over. So really easy to use. Um, and yeah, any questions on the basics of using the calendar? Alex, yeah, in terms of deviation, yes, I have a whole slide dedicated to that. So we'll get to that. Yeah. Oh, and Jake said, having a break after a block of time, that's actually, so it is incentivizing, yes, and also it's science. Um, our brains are really not structured to work on tasks for longer than 2 hours in most cases. Now, certain folks, especially like people with neurodivergence, which I have, you can all in on a task for 6 hours, 8 hours, 10 hours, but it's not always necessarily like healthy. Um, and it doesn't necessarily mean you should avoid doing that, but it's just a reminder, especially with more mundane business related tasks. It's a reminder to just like step away and create that break so that you can come back refreshed. So it's like it's a scientific approach as well as like an incentive. Um, and Brandon asked about using the appointment booking feature. Are you talking about like letting people book with you?
Yes, I could have said Calendly, but we've been in Google the whole time. But
Yeah,
the deeper
yeah,
question is any
Calendly,
notes or advice on how to let others interact with our calendar?
yeah, I don't have a slide dedicated to that. I mean, I think Calendly's great. I think the main thing I'll say about using Calendly is just ensure that you know what your boundaries are so that you put that into your calendar. So you're not accepting meetings when you're not able to or fully prepared to have people schedule with you. So I think looking at it as like an office hours kind of approach where you have maybe a 2 to 4 hour block in the middle of the day, whatever kind of works for you though. It could be at the beginning of the day, the end of the day. Um, but and not only committing to that, but making sure that that works for you. That's I think the biggest tip I have around that. So hopefully that's helpful. Cool. So now I'm going to talk about back planning, which is kind of a more advanced practice on using a calendar. And this is really, not only is this good for using a calendar, it's also just good for ensuring that larger projects or events get done without any procrastination. This is the antidote to procrastination right here, if you actually implement it. Um, so, first person in the chat, tell me a big project you have for your business. And you just rough description, like a few words, a sentence. What is the big project you have either currently or that's coming up for you? Okay, so Brandon says setting goals and plans for 2026 business strategy. Okay, and what is your um, desired due date? Like when do you want to be done with that? Okay, February 15th. Um, great. So we're gonna use Brandon as an example and go back to the calendar and do some back planning. So looking at the 15th, that's Sunday, we're gonna say by 4 p.m. Um, finish business strategy for 2026. And make sure I would personally I would classify this as my professional, but obviously Brandon will have Brandon, I'm sorry, I don't know your pronouns. Okay. So Uh, Brandon may have other buckets. But first, we want to start with that. We're going to start with when is the due date? When does it need to be done? When am I doing the final task related to the project? Then we're going to back plan it. So we're going to determine. So I'm going to get a little arbitrary right now just because I don't know your business very well, obviously. But to develop a business strategy, let's just say you need 12 hours. Could be more, could be less. Um, we're going to take that total and we're going to break it down into digestible chunks. And then we're going to scatter them out throughout the week. So we're going to go back a day and we're going to look at Saturday. Now, let's say the morning Saturday is completely shot. So we're going to do something in the afternoon. Let's say 3 o'clock. We're going to spend 2 hours of developing business strategy. Let's get even more specific. And let's say for that 2 hours, we're going to do marketing channels. Okay. And you're going to put that on there and make it 2 hours long. Okay. And then what did I say? 12 hours. We're gonna do another one right after this client meeting. But we're gonna give ourselves a little bit of a break. And let's say we need another 2 hours for the marketing channels. So we're gonna put that there because we want to make sure. Well, actually, let's say instead of marketing channels, we'll say marketing language and collateral. So that's what you're going to spend that 2 hours on. And then, so now we have 4 hours total. We only have these 4 days really. Let's say Saturday you want to take it kind of easy. So on Friday, you're going to actually kind of cram and you're going to do a session even before your client meeting and say strategy, and we'll do, I don't know, partnerships. And you're going to brainstorm and start reaching out and developing what relationships you want to have with partners. And then you have a lot going on, personal stuff on Thursday. So maybe you're not going to do 2 hour block. Maybe you're just going to do 1 hour block, so you don't overburden yourself that day. So strategy, and I don't know, we'll look at finances. So how, funding the business / accounting. Okay, so hopefully you're getting the idea is where, as we called it, back planning. We're starting with this due date, and we're working backwards, finding the times in our schedule where we can actually get stuff done. So currently we have 6, 7 hours. So maybe we probably need 4 hours on Wednesday. Maybe we just need a brainstorming session. And then maybe late after a 1 hour break, you have lunch, you come back, brainstorming, and then after brainstorming, you move straight into like, I don't know, figuring out what I wish I knew more about your business so I can make this more relevant, but moving from brainstorming into action items, I guess. And then, so now we're what, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11. So we'll just spend 1 hour later today, right after this session, because all the ideas are fresh, and you're gonna just do like market research, kind of the most boring thing, but it has to be done. We need to know our market. So there you go. So that is back planning. So that way you know when you're going to do each task related to the larger project. You have the time blocked out. You can move it if you need to, right? It's not necessarily like non-negotiable, but it is important and it's on the calendar so you know it's going to get done. So that's the whole approach to back planning. Let's see if I missed anything here. So ways to kind of structure this where you can prepare yourself so you're not just kind of throwing things at the wall like I was there, is figuring out, okay, how many days do I have until the event or the project needs to be done? How many hours of prep are needed? So like I said in this example, 12 hours. And then using the 2 hour blocks or 1 hour blocks in some cases, schedule all of that required time into the calendar. That's really the whole concept. I have an example here as well. This is one I used to do, but I found that it wasn't necessarily as relevant to everyone. So I'll just kind of breeze over it. But this is like if you were doing a grand opening, like an event for your business, blocking off the date, figuring out how much travel time you need that day, last minute prep, and just breathing time before the event starts. How much prep time is required for a bigger grand opening? You would spend, probably 80 hours plus. How does that time get divided? So that's space setup, build out, calling vendors, training volunteers, creating advertisements, all of the above. And then you have 6 weeks to the event, so you're scheduling all that time into your calendar so you make sure that it gets done. And then final touches, really the whole point of this, again, to reiterate, is to eliminate procrastination. So when you have like a big project or an event that you're preparing for, the last week, you want to be just like coasting in. Like you want to just be like riding the wave and ease into it. If you're doing like cramming and calling people and you're like volunteers are dropping off and you're just like, I don't know what I'm gonna do, that's gonna cause stress. Entrepreneurs don't need any more stress than we already have. So the idea is to remove stress from the equation and just have everything prepared so that you can just put final touches, send your last minute invites, review the plan with your people who are involved, and it's easy, or much easier at least. So any questions on back planning? Okay. Let's see where we're out of time. All right, so we're speaking of time, I'm so I normally do this presentation in 2 hours. So I'm not going to take 2 hours of your day. So I'm going to go a little bit fast for these last few slides. Um, but someone did ask, what happens when I have to make adjustments? What happens when plans fail, as they inevitably do? First is just accept it. You have to come to a realization like, okay, this happened. I plan, but it's a framework, not a rigid certainty. Although I'm not religious, one of my favorite quotes is, uh, "Man plans and God laughs," and that's just how I like to look at things whenever things blow up in my face. Like, oh, I tried. So accept it, then assess. So what tasks can be delayed and what tasks need to happen right now. So you have to figure out for yourself in that moment, okay, can I move this to tomorrow? Can I move this to next week? So that you can focus on those priority tasks for the day. Be adaptable. You're going to have to be patient as you pivot into that new schedule. So it's a mindset, right? You have to coach yourself. It's not going to go how you thought it was going to go, but if you're patient, you can adapt and it'll go smoothly. And then another one, just update your calendar to reflect those recent changes. Make sure that you are preparing to ensure that there's not a cascade effect of multiple things getting delayed. All right. So now with burnout, I wanted to spend a minute on this because I think it's really important to address with not only our community, queer community, and LGBTQ folks, but just entrepreneurs in general as well. Burnout is very real. The definition of it is physical, emotional, and or mental exhaustion accompanied by decreased motivation, lowered performance, and negative attitudes toward oneself and others. It's important because it's common among entrepreneurs. Hustle culture, especially in the US, has created these unrealistic expectations for business owners and employees. And COVID is still real, but the pandemic made burnout more prevalent than it ever was before. Um, People were experiencing, like emotional burnout, just from like dealing with all of the stuff in the pandemic. So what can we do about it? And that's where work-life balance comes in. So we already worked on the 168-hour week. Think about that number you had left over. And then this is just thought experiment time. So how much of that would you like, that time that you had left over, how much would you like to commit to yourself? Um, and that means self-care, creative projects, things that you love. And then how much of that time do you want to dedicate to family, friends, or home life, like pets, home improvements, just enjoying your space is also part of that, right? Just being at home in your favorite nook or favorite chair or whatever it might be. So just start thinking about that because that's really important. And as you're working to find balance, and you decide how you want to allocate that free time, schedule that free time. As I showed you in my calendar, like I'm going to a concert next week. Um, I put that on my calendar, not because like, it's like important to my business necessarily. It's just important to me. And so I treat that time as sacred. I don't check emails. I'm not texting. I'm just in the moment. And it's really important as entrepreneurs and just as people for us to spend time that's dedicated to happiness, dedicated to balance. Um, Cheesy saying I have is remember that you're your most important client and your family and friends are a very close second. So you have to nurture those relationships in addition to your business partnerships and relationships. It's really important. Um, and I also say this after sleep and eating, this time that you spend that's allocated to yourself and your loved ones is the most important time for an entrepreneur. Because if you don't do these things, if you don't nourish yourself and you don't take time for yourself, you are doing yourself a disservice and you're doing your clients a disservice, honestly, because you are not showing up as a whole person. And that's really the whole point of this entire presentation is to get all the boring stuff and the important stuff scheduled so that you can spend time on yourself and your loved ones and the things that you love and show up as a whole person each day. All right. Really quickly, I know we don't have much time. We're going to talk about single pointed focus. So this is a an approach that I developed through working with entrepreneurs over many years to essentially be the most productive we can be in a given amount of time. This is meant to be like a blocked amount of time, like has a very clear start and end point. The first thing is to create a distraction-free environment for yourself. So turning off your phone, if possible, setting a away message on your chat or emails, closing any unnecessary tabs. This is a big one with entrepreneurs that I've seen is if you have a bunch of different tabs open on your browser, close them all or at least minimize that window and open a fresh window that you're going to be doing this particular task. Um, Two kinds of people in this world. Some people need noise to focus, some people need silence. So I wrote turn off music. The caveat here is if you need noise, try to find lyric-free music. So classical, lo-fi, even white noise or nature sounds can be really effective here. Or if you're a person that needs silence, then make sure you don't have anything playing. And then if you share a space with anyone, like if you share an office or you work from home and you have roommates or kids, as long as they're not, children that need constant supervision, let anyone know that might interrupt you, like, hey, this is my focus time. Do not interrupt me. Maybe get a, sock on the door, do not disturb sign, whatever it might be. Um, and then just ensure that you also take time to take breaks to keep the mind fresh. The other part of single pointed focus is what's called single tasking. Everyone knows what multitasking is. Single tasking is you're doing one thing at a time and you're doing it well. And most people, I feel like this is kind of foreign to a lot of people in today's age. So a good way to kind of familiarize yourself and build up a tolerance to this is to set a timer for the task. It can be 1 minute, 5 minutes, 10, 30, whatever, but set a timer and have it be visible so that you know, like, this is how long I'm working on this task. Some other tips around single point of focus. Having that block schedule actually helps trick your brain into focusing more because like, okay, I'm actually done at this time, rather than this is like a never-ending thing and then our brain drifts and says, okay, what do we have to do next? What do we have to do next? And the idea is you're not planning the rest of your day when you're single tasking because you've already spent that time to block out the rest of your day. Unless you're doing digital marketing of some kind, stay off social media if you're trying to single focus. Silence all your notifications for it. I already talked about background noise if you need it. Fidget toy if you're doing like a training like this and you're like not taking constant notes, a fidget toy might be helpful. And okay, I have a few minutes left. Um, so how to create time efficiencies. These are just some of my favorite tips on being efficient and like finding little spaces of time in your day that wouldn't normally be there. Um, my favorite one is eat the frog. And Janine had mentioned this like emotionally draining tasks, but start your day by doing the task you're dreading the most. This is a practice, it takes discipline, but I can tell you from experience, this is one of the best things you can do for yourself. It frees up mental space because we're not dreading that task. For the rest of the day, it's done, it's out of the way. I can have the rest of my day to do the other stuff I want to do. Done is better than perfect. I am a recovering perfectionist, and so this is something that's really helpful for me to remember, especially when I'm writing songs. They say that no piece of art is ever finished. You just find a good place to stop, and that's really how I have to look at things because there's no such thing as perfection. Learn to say no. Huge thing for entrepreneurs. We want to say yes to everything, but ultimately you do have to say no in order to protect your time, protect your space, and protect your mental well-being in some cases. And no is not rude. It's just a boundary. And it doesn't have to be no never. It can be no not right now. So that's one way to look at it. The 2-minute rule. So anytime a task feels really daunting and we're like this is going to take me forever, just spend 2 minutes starting the task. Just set a timer, say, I'm going to start the task. It could be opening a document, drafting an email, doing a quick sketch, writing the title of the project, whatever it might be. Spend 2 minutes just starting it, just so your brain can go, okay, I've started this thing. And then keep going if it makes sense, or at least you started it. Um, and then my kind of saying is leave your future self a gift. So if you find yourself with an extra 10 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever, at the end of a block of time, um, organize some papers, send that one quick email, or wash that one glass that's sitting in your sink or whatever. But just one little small thing for your future self saying, oh, I'm going to really appreciate this later when I want to just like wind down. And then focus on learning your personal cycles. I think that's really, really important. So I'm going to skip review, skip conclusion. We've already talked about most of this. Um, you will get these slides. We'll make sure of that. There's some self-care practices that I've included in the resources page here. So these are links to different self-care practices, grounding techniques, which I think are really helpful to get you into the space of, yeah, just taking care of yourself. Additional time blocking and productivity tips for entrepreneurs, and then some apps that might be helpful for you. Or, well, the time clock and the brick are actually not apps. I should call it something else. They're tools that you can use that help with single pointed focus, especially, and can help with time management as well. Okay, made it through. It's 1 o'clock. If you need to go, I understand, but thank you all for attending. If you have any final questions, I'm here for it. And here's how you get in touch with me if you want to hear about other workshops that I teach. I also provide one-on-one training and creative business services as well.